never curse. It's really important to be professional. And so already I'm way out of my comfort zone being here. Number two is everybody I've seen since I've gotten here have said, I can't wait to hear what you have to say. I really want to hear this. And so the expectations are really high, and I'm really nervous now that I'm not going to fucked up enough for you all. So maybe my worst fuck up will be this presentation. So let's see. As you heard, I'm an artist, and I'm actually most well known for doing a project called Skull a Day. And so basically, if you didn't know the project, I spent a year making skull art every single day, and I did it because I'd actually gotten really stuck in my business as a creative professional. I just plateaued and was really just frustrated and trying to find a way out of it, and very randomly had this idea, and I did this project. It led to all kinds of amazing things, and I'm not going to tell you about any of those, so you just go look it up. But I want to tell you that within this thing that has been giving me the most success in my career is rooted a lot of failure, and it actually was built into the process of doing it. I'm a perfectionist by nature, and committing to doing something creative every day for a year, there's no way to do it perfectly. There's no way to get it right, and it's incredibly stressful and very difficult. And so I want to talk about the worst of Skull a Day. This piece that's on here was the very first day of the project. It was just a little orange piece of paper that I cut out very quickly. Frankly, it's not very good. It's just crudely done. You can see some dings in the paper. It really is just that first stepping stone that allowed me to move forward. And I always show this slide to people, and I don't think anybody that sees it goes, oh, that was a big mistake. But frankly, it's not a very good piece of art. And that's what's interesting about this project and the process of doing it. So I want to show you some of the things that happened within the course of this, because here's the thing. I started here really low, and I ended here really high. It was, to many people that looks like a direct line trajectory, but it's really a lot more like the stock market, right? It's up and down every day. And so depending on where you hone in, you can see some really great things or some really terrible things. So when I go and travel the world and talk about this story, of course, I'm picking the highlights. These are really the lowlights. What happened within this year that wasn't the thing that felt so good? So one of the things that happened, because I was making something every single day, is that, some solutions just sort of came to me quickly because I was in the middle of running a full-time business as well. So in this case, I found this brick that kind of looked like a skull to me, and I think I chipped away a little at it and felt like I had succeeded in my task and put it up online, and people went, I don't see the skull. So maybe you do, I hope you do, but I was like, really? Oh no. So, that was a day that ended me feeling kind of crummy. The only good part was that I knew I had to make something the next day, and maybe I could do better. Maybe, hopefully. So at least on that day, I didn't spend a lot of time making my art, whereas on this day, I decided I was going to replicate the very classic face vase illusion, but I was going to make a skull version of it. And a friend of mine convinced me that the way to do this would be to take a solid block of aluminum and put it on a lathe and lathe it down. Now, if you know anything about that, that's not an easy thing to do. Why didn't I do wood? I have no idea. So I spent 10 hours lathing metal, creating this huge pile on the floor, which I used the next day and made a much better skull. But I spent the whole day doing this, just miserable, sweating, put it up online. Look, I did this thing. I don't see the skull. I see the skull. But that's what everybody said. The artists were like, nope, don't see it. I see it. Do you see it? I don't. Some people do. Oh, good. Okay. So, whew. But yeah, there was not a big reaction for a lot of effort put into it. Some days it was really that I ran out of time and materials and was trying to achieve a concept that I had in my head. I thought I could, transform a shirt. And to give you a little context, this was a dozen years ago when I did this. And so I did this shirt kind of thing, and it kind of worked. And I think I was 3 shirts in, and was like, I don't have any more shirts left. This is the best I can do. It doesn't really look like a skull. It's more of a face. People were pretty kind about it. But then, a few years later, I started seeing these skull shirts that people were doing like this, but so much simpler and looked way more like a skull. And I was like, yeah, there you go. So hopefully they learned from my mistakes on that. Frequently I get asked what was my favorite or the best skull of the year, and the answer I usually give is, well, they're all my favorites, but I'll tell you about one that I liked a lot. But they never ask me my least favorite. And this is it. This is my least favorite. This was only 13 days in, but frankly, I didn't do a very good job. The concept was there, but the execution was pretty terrible. It sufficed for the day. But here's the thing. It was early enough in the year that I was like, oh, I think I'm going to be okay. So, I put it up there and people were pretty kind about it, but I felt bad. And here I am all these years later. I will always think, oh man, I really could have done better that day. But if you ask the audience of the project, they didn't say this was the worst one. Because as I was going along in the year, I was making better things and I was improving, and sometimes I was really hitting the mark. It felt really good. But that means the expectations were even higher, and the audience was growing because the project had gone viral. And so thousands of people were coming every day. And now I'm really stressed out trying to do a good job every day for strangers, which is never a good thing. And so I was like, oh my gosh. And so this is the one that they hated the most. And again, a dozen years ago, this happened, and I could still pinpoint this exact moment. I mean, I knew exactly what slide I was going to pull. I knew exactly the comments that were under this image. These are little Viewmaster slides. And I thought it was kind of clever. It looks kind of like a monkey skull to me. I don't know. I felt okay about this one. And people just hated it. Especially anonymous people who are super, super mean. This was not the only comment like this. Frankly, if you parse it, it's not that bad a comment. They first say something nice about me, and that's actually what most of the comments were. But here's the thing. I don't remember the good comments that day, and there were good ones. I saw them, but I don't remember them. And so I have an equation, I say, which is basically that it takes 1,000 positives for 1 negative. I don't think that's real math, but basically that's the feeling. Look, I remember that negative, and so when people ask me, how do we deal with negative feedback, I always say, don't give it. Because it just doesn't work. It makes people feel terrible. And look I'm obsessing about something from a dozen years ago, from that stupid negative, from a person I don't know. And my wife would be like, why do you care? You don't even know who this person is. It doesn't matter, but it does. We internalize this stuff, and it's really important. So I want to show you, not my artwork, but the artwork of a couple of photographers who traveled the country around World War I. In the United States. And I just want to talk about the hubris of my project and what I was doing, because I did achieve some success with it. And because of that, I really pushed myself to go harder and bigger. And I didn't, again, sort of some days were better, some were worse, but I was moving up this hill. And so right before the end of the project, I really want to make a huge splash. I want to make something really big and really impressive. This audience that follow me, really go out on a bang. And so I knew about these photographers who had traveled the country making these huge anamorphic images of all different things, but they're patriotic images. And I was like, I want to do that. That's awesome. And so this is my concept. I'm going to do this. So I put the call out. I got press. I reached this huge audience through my website and everywhere, and I said, please come out Sunday morning at 9 a.m. on Belle Isle. And I made a mistake right there. So mistake number one, Sunday morning. And I thought it would be less hot because it was the summer. I was like, this is a good idea. Yeah, don't make plans for Sunday morning at 9 a.m. So I put the word out, and I was getting a lot of positive feedback. I'm like, I'm going to have hundreds of people. This will be great. But I want to point out one thing about this image. If you look way down in the corner, you'll see that was 21,000 people to make this image. Because what they were doing is they're going to army bases and getting every single person on the army base to help them do this. Now, I didn't think I'd get 21,000 people, but I thought I'd get a few hundred people. I got 35 people. And this is the day before I finished my year-long massive project. And some of my very, very kind friends came out very early in the morning, and some of the press that came to help me ended up in the photograph. And everybody brought black and white shirts, and this was the very best skull I could make, and it was okay. So I just want to finish. I actually did rearrange them into what I sort of envisioned would happen, and this is the eyes and the nose. So imagine hundreds of more people filling all that in and making a really amazing product. But I didn't do that. And so, I don't know, when I read the sort of expectations of this was not to wrap it up and give you a feel-good statement, so I won't. I'll just say, there you go. Thanks, you guys.